Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. So today, what are we going to discuss? Today, we're going to discuss about uh, making an agreement making between the landlord and the tenant. So before we do that, I have a few things to discuss about the new rental act, which has been enacted in 2017. So, according to the new Tenancy Act 2017, lot of changes, and it gives power to both the tenant and the landlord. Earlier, before 2017, we were following up the Rental Act of 1942 or something like that. So, where we were those laws were very stringent, like it does not allow a tenant to be vacated so easily, even if he doesn't pay the rent. Or we find a lot of cases in High Court still existing for about 10, 20, 30 years still, and they have been not resolved. So for this purpose, they brought in this new Tenancy Act 2017, and it was called forth that whoever is are in the court, in the jurisdiction, fighting for the justice, landlord and tenant, they were asked to move to this new act 2017, and the time period was also given for them to move the case from the local, from the other jurisdictions to this act. So what you have to do in this act is, so you have an agreement between, you have made an agreement between the land. So you are a landlord, and you have made an agreement between the tenant. And so once you make an agreement, so there are certain points that we're going to discuss. So what are the points that we need to add in an agreement, which are very essential for you to safeguard it? So what are those that I'm going to discuss? But before that, I'm saying, once you register you make an agreement between the landlord and the tenant, you can, for the safe zone, you can also register this, upload this agreement to a tenancy website. There's a website called tenancy.in, which is in Tamilnadu, exclusive for Tamilnadu housing urban policy. So you have to upload that agreement into the website, and you have to pay some amount, 100 rupees, the registration, and you will get some unique code number, which you can also give it to your HR if you're going to provide you free housing or tenant repayment. So they will need this number also, so you can provide it to them. Otherwise, why we want to register it? So let's say you have a dispute with your tenant, the landlord. You being the landlord, you have some dispute with the tenant. You want the tenant to vacate because either he has not paid the rent, or he is creating nuisance, and so you want to vacate the tenant. So you have to just, once, since you have an agreement made, you have to give him in writing that you are asking him to vacate the premise with whatever the time frame that you have made in your agreement. Suppose in your agreement you made that, so once I give the return statement to my tenant, he has to vacate the premise in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. It's up to you and the landlord, the tenant, how they make up. Suppose you have made 2 months notice that you have to give to your tenant. So you can draft the letter to send it by postal letter, registered postal letter, or give it by hand to the tenant. Get a signature, cross signature from him. So if he does not vacate after the period of notice period, you can move to the RDO. So this comes under the revenue department now. So I'm saying about the rural, but urban I'm not sure. I think it has to go to the corporation. So somewhere like that. So for rural, you have to meet the RBO and give him a complaint letter or whatever, stating that the tenant has not vacated and you want the tenant to vacate. Now things are very simple. In my case, I am a landlord. I wanted one of my tenant to vacate because he was creating nuisance for all the other subordinate shop. And we had to go to the police station, and the tenant had filed a case against me. So I was very depressed about it and trying to find out how I can resolve it. I didn't want to go to the court because court cases, it goes on 5, 10 years, 15, 20 years, 25 years. You will not know, because there are such cases. So that is when I started searching for the solution. I got this from a forum, and I started digging more into the thing, and I found this Tenancy Act thing, the new Act 2017, as I said. So I went to the RDO, gave him a petition. I said, no, this is the thing, and he called for inquiry. He called the tenant also, and he set a final date for the tenant that he has to vacate in 30 days. So after 30 days, he did not vacate again. I have to give a present. Then it was resolved. So what I'm trying to tell you is this new Tenant Act 2017. You go to the RDO within 90 days. This no, the case has to resolve. That is the first term of this. So within 90 days, the tenant has to vacate. Even if you have an agreement, I'm saying this case will pend for inquiry, whatever case it. Within 90 days, it has to close. If you are a senior citizen, you know much more faster. The RDO has to resolve this in 30 to 45 days. He has to close this case. That is the law says. So what is the benefit of this law is things are very easy. Even for a tenant, who finds difficult getting a advance back from the landlord, he has to go to the RDO and file a case against him. No, file a complaint against him. So you will be called forth, and you can retrieve your money back from your landlord as well. So what are the points that we need to carefully draft it in our agreement? So those are the points that I'm going to discuss today in this video. So let's get into the content.
So this is the agreement document that we are going to discuss today. So here, see on the top portion, this is to be printed on a 20 rupees stamp paper. So minimum is 20 rupees. You can go for any amount above than this. But so try to leave space here so that when you print that 20 rupees, that printed thing will be on the top. So half the page, it should start from, I think it's not visible to the left corner, 13. So you should start from 13, the ruler size, half the page. And you should leave a space here for the tenant and the landlord to sign. So this is the agreement, this thing. So let's go with it. This deed of shop lease agreement executed at Poneri on 17th day of May 2022. So you may have your own location replaced here. In my case, it's Poneri. You can have, suppose it's Pollachi, you can say Pollachi, or Chennai on 17th. So you have to replace this. So between a landlord, first comes the landlord. So Dilip Kumar and K, son of, so the dash has to be filled with the father's name. Mention your age, and possible you could also mention your religion. Um, that's not mandatory, but it's always good to mention it. So, and the present address of the landlord, is Aadhaar card number. So herein call the owner, which term shall mean and include his as representatives, administrators, executives, and assigns. So they're all come into the term owner. And mention, give your, provide your mobile number, and then that, and between the tenant, Mr. Soundarajan here, or son of, you should also have son of age, mention the tenant age, and where is he currently residing. Suppose his Aadhaar card address must be different, but if he is in a different address other than Aadhaar card, you should mention the term currently residing. So use the word currently residing at number 11 17th, whatever. I'll just put a different address just for a sample. So replace this address with the actual tenant address. So and then so Chennai Thiruvallur district, and then mention his Aadhaar card number. Then it's called, then so hereinafter he is called as tenant, which shall mean wherever the document mentions tenant. So Mr. Soundarajan is into it. So is all representing his administrative executives, his legal hairs. So provide his mobile number here, and so leave a space here for both to sign underneath here. And the next page will be, you have to provide your actual address of the shop or the house where it's located. And then and after that is our terms and conditions that we want to draft. So let's go with here. Whereas the owner is the absolute owner of the property, so you have to just put in a description that you are the owner. The owner says that he is the absolute owner of the property. It's just a declaration. And he's also measuring the approximate overview of the building size, so 500 square feet. So where is the location, and so henceforth this is called scheduled property. So wherever I'm saying shop or tenant property, so this is the address that I am mentioning to. And so whereas the tenant has requested the owner for the lease and with the following terms and conditions. So what are those conditions? Let's go with the condition. The conditions are very important in this agreement because they play a vital role in the future when there's a no problem with the tenant and the owner. These points that we have termed here will help each other. So let's go with this. The lease has commenced from 16 5 2022 and shall be for a period of 11 months. So tentatively I put some date here. So for 11 months, why am I putting 11 months is when the agreement is made more than a year or more than years, it should be registered. So that's the reason why we're making it 11 months, just below 1 year. So every 11 months either we have to renew it, or if you want to go for 3 or 5 years, you should be ready to register the deed, provided whatever your advance amount, against which 7% and the document fees of 4%, so altogether 11% has to be paid to the register. So that you should keep in mind. And so the lease ends 11 months, the lease ends 16 4 2023. So the tenant shall pay a monthly rent of 4,000 on or before 5th of every succeeding month. So we are just mentioning that before 5th he has to pay, or if you feel 10th or 15th, whatever comfortable dates that you both want to fix to, you can fix with. This agreement stands cancelled upon rent due for more than 2 months, and the tenant has to vacate the premise immediately within 15 days without any further written notice from the owner. So this is my draft, my agreement that I have drafted. So to be on a safe zone, or the tenant, in case I had issues with tenant who have not paid rent for even 6 months, so then having trouble with them is all, that. So for the safe side I have just put this. So this agreement stands cancelled upon rent due for month. If he has not paid rent for continuous 2 months, this agreement gets cancelled, which means that the tenant will lose all his powers of possession. So he has to vacate immediately 15 days. The owner gets the power of asking him to leave within 15 days because he has not paid the rent. So the next point, the tenant has paid to the owner, so he has paid an advance of 15,000, so that the owner has acknowledged the advance amount here, and this amount will be refunded to the tenant the time when he is vacating, upon any detection of arrears or electricity charges or any maintenance charge will be detected, and the rest of the amount will be refunded to the tenant by the owner. This amount will not carry any interest, rate of interest or something. So and the main thing is, this advance amount will on no account be adjusted against rent, meaning that the tenant cannot say that no, for monthly rent he'll say that that he's not paying rent this month and he wants the owner to deduct from his advance, which cannot be done. So advance amount is not something which can be deducted for the rent. So that is a point included, and the shop is leased to the tenant for the purpose of, here I have rented for provision store. Saying selling eatables items in rental also, any store. If it's a bakery shop, mention it bakery shop, or if it's some other shop, mention what is the category of the shop. Describe, get the complete thing from the tenant. What is he going to do with the store? He has any other no combined businesses in it? If so, you're okay with it, then put everything here, because later on he should not change his business, and or so he will have a provision store today, and tomorrow you have another shop which you want to give it for bakery. This provision shop should not become a bakery without your knowledge, and if so, you are not liable for it. So he has told you provision store, and you are no rented your another shop for a bakery shop, so you are no way no liable for it. And also you're saying no other activities engaged other than described. The tenant will ensure to acquire proper licensing and required survey. That is, if it's a bakery or if it's kind of a shop, they should occur a FSSA certificate from the government. That has to be done by the tenant, which is made clear here. The tenant shall pay all the electricity bill by himself. Any advance or CC charges included in the bill has to be paid by the tenant himself. So any general sweeping or cleaning charges will be imposed if shop area is not kept neat and maintained. So he has not swept. You find the shop very filthy, very filthy. You want to clear the shop, so you demand the tenant to sweep, maintain, clean. He has not done it. Either the landlord can do the cleaning and claim the charges from the tenant. The tenant shall not make any alteration in the shop without prior permission of the owner. So this is a very important point actually. Or most of the people don't understand this actually. The tenant on no, he should not make any alteration in the electricity fittings, or he cannot do any construction of saying that he wants to put a lab or he wants to build a wall in between, which he cannot do without the permission of the owner. See, in my case, I have rented 4 shops. One of the shop had actually fixed an electric socket. So so after 2 days after his work, I didn't know that this work has been done in one of the shop. After 2 days, another shop, while I was saying that no, he has felt some mild electricity shock in the shutter, since the metal and the other parts of the screws and things. So he's finding some electric shocks. So I was trying to rectify the problem, see where it is, see the earth and things. So after 2 days, I was asking the question to another shop, "Okay, when did you fix that socket?" So he was saying, no, recently, 2 days back only I did. Then I said, actually, so when I opened it and saw the earth and neutral were interconnected, which means the neutral was given in the earth and earth was given in the neutral. So because of that only, that electric problem was there. Then when I asked the electric person who did that, he said, no, I forgot. And it was a very small thing for him, but for us, it's a rectifying it. It all falls on the owner's head, because he has to rectify. One complains, he has to run behind and find. So it's always good for a good tenant to always go to the owner and inform him what you are doing, or take his permission. That will be good for him to actually manage the complete apartment or the commercial places. So we'll see. Look at the next point. The tenant undertakes to keep the original shop shutter and the lock same. So we're just acknowledging that the original keys of the shutter keys have been given to the tenant, and which has to be returned by the tenant when he's vacating the premise. So the 10th point is very important. As I mentioned, 2 months prior notice should be given by either side for vacating the premise or on early cancellation of this agreement. So if suppose the tenant wants to leave the shop or the house, so he wants to cancel this agreement and he is moving on, so he has to give 2 months notice at least. Otherwise he has to pay the rent and then leave, because it also takes time for the landlord to find another tenant also. So for this reason, or the landlord even cannot ask the tenant to leave for any reason. He may want the premise, or he wants to give it to some of his cousin. Whatever reasons he may have, his premise he can do that. But even if he has to do that, he has to properly give 2 months notice. The landlord has to give proper notice to the tenant and vacating the premise. So here I mentioned 2 months. It is up to you to the tenant and the landlord to decide whether it should be 3 or 1 or 4 or 5, whatever it is. It is a mutual agreement that we make. So the 11th point is, the tenant shall on expiry or early termination of the rental agreement deliver vacant peaceful possession. So while vacating the premise, the tenant has to return the premise as as it was given to him. So normal wear and tear is excluded, like small scratch on the wall or paint, small scratch, all that should be excluded. Should not no, that is also mentioned. The 12th point is very very important. As per the new Tenant Act, as I was telling you that uh, the new act, the changes in the Rental Act, which was implemented, Tenant Act 2017, says if a tenant does not vacate the premise after the end of this agreement, or is been asked to leave the premise, a notice was given and he has not vacated, and after the due date, here if he is continuing to stay, he has to pay double the rent till the period of till the period he is. Suppose you write a you make a complaint to the RDO. The RDO is called for discussion. This goes on till 3 or 4 months. The landlord doesn't have to worry, because if the agreement period is over and the tenant is still continuing without whatever reason may be. However, if the tenant does not have the agreement period, so if he is staying beyond that agreement period, he has to under any circumstances pay double rent to the owner. So which is trying to make that clear that that is applicable here, double rent is applicable. I'm just making it a mark. The 13th point says the tenant agrees and permits the owner to disconnect the electricity supply and water. So the tenant agrees that electricity or water to be disconnected with the owner upon termination of the agreement, or if he wants to leave earlier or he has not paid the rent, the owner gets all the power to do cut the electricity or do whatever that cut the water supplies also. So instead of them going to the police station or to the jurisdiction, you can actually do this first step. Earlier it is not allowed, before 2007 amendments corrections. You cannot correct and disconnect the enjoyment of the tenant, like his electricity or water connection, whatever it is. The tenant's enjoyment cannot be disconnected on any circumstance. Even that still continues in 2017 act as well, but since you have drafted here in your agreement, you can always justify that it's been in your agreement. So that is why we bring this into in our agreement. So the 14th point, that the tenant shall not sublet or assign the tenancy, and so the tenant cannot rent the half portion of the shop to some other person, or cannot rent the front portion of the shop to some other person, which cannot be done. So that is the 14th. The 15th point is not to suffer or to be done in upon the dismissed permits or other parts. So the tenant will ensure that he is not annoying, or no, he is not interfering with the comfort and the comforts of the other people around and the owner. So he is very peacefully running his job, a business, without becoming nuisance to anyone. So that's the 15th point. So 16th point says the tenant shall permit the owner or his authorized representative to enter the premise for inspection at any time suitable to both parties and may be mutually agreed upon. Since the premise is been rented to the uh, tenant, so tenant gets the whole ownership of the possession. But however, if the owner wants to inspect his own building on the premise, so he should have some control of it. So the owner is taking on permission here, that he has all the right to enter the tenant's rented shop or the house, and the tenant agrees for that on a both part on a mutual time or date or whatever it is. So you cannot deny the owner from entering his own premise, rented premise. So 17 points, the owner is not liable for any theft, loss, fire, destruction, or so the tenant claims that uh, some theft has happened in his premise, or some fire has happened, some destruction of the assets or anything, which the tenant cannot claim from the owner. So the owner is not liable for any of those incidences. So 18th point says the tenant will repay the losses to the owner on any damage to the premise, like wall or fittings, electrical fitting, shutter, or amenities of the premise, whatever may be. So the tenant has to return the shop as he has taken from the owner. On any damage to it, he has to bear the cost to it. And here I'm mentioning any dispute arise between two parties, like the tenant and the owner, the same should be dealt under the new Tenant Act 2017 in the jurisdiction of the RDO, Revenue Department Office, of Poneri only. Here I have mentioned, very particularly mentioned, it should be in the jurisdiction of Poneri only. So it should not be some other place. So because it's a mutual agreement that the tenant and the owner decides if they have any dispute, where should they meet. So here in my case I put Poneri because that's very close to the shop and the owner's address here. The 20th says, so that's it. 20th says that the tenant has been put in a peaceful enjoyment and the terms and conditions have to be adhered. So that's the 20th point. And so in case you have some other points according to your nature of business or thing, you can actually add on as many points. So there's no restriction of no adding points here. So you can think of different points or no, make out different terms and conditions as well. So the final point here is mentioned is the very strict point. I'm recapping it here because it is hereby expressly agreed and declared that if the tenant commits default in the payment of the monthly rent for a period of 2 months, the owner shall not, withstanding the period of 11 months herein before stipulated for proceeding against the tenant, to evict the tenant from the said portion, more fully described in the schedule under. So the tenant, so the owner is actually claiming the possession if the tenant does not pay rent for 2 months. So that's the enforcement here. And the schedule property details here is you have to mention the dimension and the shop, whatever that facilities and shop measurements uh, here. So here I'm saying shop building measurement is 200 square feet approximately. So ground floor with 2 side shutter and frontage 2 feet approximately, with parking area of 2 feet in front of the shop, covered by metal sheet, no toilet or washroom provided. So these are the facilities that I am providing here, so which I am mentioning it here. So that's it. So in front of the witnesses, you're going to sign here, the tenant will sign here, the owner will sign here. And so once you have signed, that's it. You can actually make a 2 copy of it, or you can make 1 copy and the owner can give a Xerox copy to the tenant. So it's very simple. And one thing that you should have in mind, the audio's judgment is the final thing. The tenant or the landlord cannot go for a second appeal to any high court or even Supreme Court. So whatever that judgment has been passed by the audio, that is the final. Or you can go for a second appeal with the DRO, saying that you are not satisfied and the law has been not followed, kind of a thing, and that is subject to the DRO's final discretion only. You cannot demand or anything like that appeal with so that's about it. So hope you have some knowledge about drafting the agreement. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe, comment below. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.